What's going on, U.S. History people? This is Mr. Norris, and I am joined by my boy,
Mr. Lorenc.
Mr. Lawrence. And we got Phil Notes here with us today as well. He's making it back for this packet. We have video number 1 for nationalism and sectionalism. We're going to talk about what is nationalism and sectionalism, and then we're going to analyze some factors that unified the United States. So, Mr. Lawrence, let's do a little brainstorming. What the heck is nationalism and sectionalism?
All right, so nationalism and sectionalism. Nationalism is a word that I think most of us should be familiar with. Sectionalism is a little different. So let's talk nationalism. Let's get our brains storming. So something you should be aware of is nationalism is the development of an independent, strong, or united nation. Now, as U.S. history students in New York State, there's a very good chance that you've studied a lot of nationalism last year in global studies too. So, Mr. Norris, do you remember any nationalist leaders that people may have studied last year?
I do. I remember a guy from India. He went on a salt march. He was trying to get rid of the British out of India, and I think his name was Gandhi.
That is correct.
And there he is
Gandhi,
there, yes.
A very famous nationalist. And do you remember he was trying to gain independence for what nation?
For India.
That's correct. From the
British, just like the U.S.
So he would be considered a nationalist?
Absolutely.
What about, there was some other nationalists that we studied in global history.
There was a dude from Italy who led a group of people called the Red Shirts because they wore red shirts. He was, yeah, very original. Giuseppe Garibaldi, there he is. Look at him. He just looks very proud right there standing.
Absolutely. And his nationalist movement takes place during the time period we're studying in American history,
correct? Yeah, yes, that is true, the Civil War. Did you know that Abe Lincoln actually asked him, well, of course you know this because you're a Lincoln connoisseur, Abe Lincoln asked him to command the Northern Army.
Absolutely. And did you know that there is actually a brick taken from the Coliseum given from Giuseppe Garibaldi to the American people to place in Abraham Lincoln's tomb because he was so upset about his assassination?
I did not know that. That's pretty
interesting.
Go
see it today. It's pretty cool.
Huh. I shall do that. Then we have this guy with probably the coolest handlebar mustache ever, I'm going with, Otto Von Bismarck. What do you think? I can grow one of those for No Shave November?
You can give it a shot.
I can give it a shot, but it will not be as good as Otto von Bismarck. He united people by going to war, and that was called
Blood and Iron.
Blood
correct?
and Iron, absolutely, yes. And then finally, the most American nationalist, the most nationalistic American of all, we have George Washington here.
Who did he fight against?
He fought against the British, too. We see a common thread here.
So, but his nationalist movement would be a little different than Gandhi, who preached nonviolent civil disobedience.
Yeah, Washington did not preach nonviolent civil disobedience.
That's
nice
right.
connection.
So when we look at nationalism, we see that there's various ways. Garibaldi, Washington, Bismarck, they use violence, but also we see that there's other techniques too, like Gandhi's in India. So just some things to keep in mind, that the study of history, there are threads that run through it, and we're not studying this kind of in a vacuum. It's all happening. And all these ideas should be interconnected.
Definitely. So let's go on to sectionalism. So if nationalism is an independent, strong, united country, sectionalism is looking at the country, the development of different competing interests within one nation. Now, typically, when we're talking about history before the Civil War, people usually think of the country as North versus South, and that is absolutely true. But there is a distinct group of people from the West as well. So we'll see with sectionalism, people will have more devotion to their section or region of the country than they do the nation. So they would identify themselves more as Southerners than as Americans.
So what you're saying is we'll see like specific cultures develop in some of these regions. Like you'll see different accents possibly.
Definitely, yes.
Different economies maybe.
Without question, you'll see the economies, and you mentioned accents. You can definitely tell where somebody's from based on how they talk. All right, so we're going to go to the Constitution tested with nationalism and sectionalism. In the decades before the Civil War, some forces contributed to national unity while others began splitting the nation apart. So, Mr. Lawrence, tell us about how the two political party system helped unify the United States.
All right, so the two-party system can very often be seen as pulling and pushing the United States. So you had opposing viewpoints led to more people in politics. So you see the division. Mr. Norris, you remember the division between the original division when it comes to political philosophy and during the founding of the United States? What do we call those people?
Federalists and anti-federalists?
That's right, and they eventually morphed into actual political parties. The Federalists became the Federalists, and you remember the anti-federalists, once ratification happened, what did they turn into?
Democratic Republicans.
That's right. Who led them?
Jefferson.
Very good.
Also known as Jeffersonians.
Oh, you're good at this.
Or Republicans. I should, yes.
Yeah, absolutely. Idea. But we can also see political parties as something that unites the nation as well. So if we look at the next bullet, here's some pictures of Hamilton on the left, Jefferson on the right, kind of our founders of these early political parties. you see Federalist Republicans, but it does actually bring the United States together in a way, because you can be a Federalist in northern Massachusetts and you can be a Federalist in eastern South Carolina. And as Federalists, you share some common beliefs. Even though you live in two different corners of the country, you might have two different cultures, but as a Federalist, you share commonalities. And the same could be for Republicans. So a two-party system can be a good thing in a nation that has a large geography, which could lead to a lot of regional divisions and a lot of sectionalism.
Definitely. Nice explanation. So let's go to the market economy, which is the growth of the American industry and interstate trade. Now, I'm looking at inter. I see the letters ER. I'm thinking the federal government has control over this trade. Shout out to Unique. Thank you for that.
A great way to remember that.
Or was it Haley? Unique or Haley?
Let's give them both credit.
Both. You know what? Everybody. Thank you, everybody. So this we're going to be talking about is cash here and how the country is getting more and more money. So people depend on each other for goods and services. The North is going to depend on the South for cotton, and the South will depend on the North for manufactured goods. And those three regions, the North, the South, and the West, will trade extensively with each other. So the North, again, will have factories. They'll become industrialized. The South will be based on agriculture, specifically cash crops such as cotton.
So you're saying the drive to make money can also unite a people?
Definitely, without question, yes.
Yeah, Americans like to make money.
Yes, I do. How about you?
I'm not opposed to it.
No, me either.
All right, so decisions of the Marshall Court. This is something that should be reviewed for most of us. This was something we've talked about in the previous unit as well. Now, if we look at the first bullet, it says, expanded the power of the federal government, specifically in the judicial branch. And how is that going to happen? Well, we know that there's some cases that really give this power to the court, specifically Marbury versus Madison. We studied a lot under John Marshall, establishes judicial review. Without judicial review, we can't have decisions like Gibbons v. Ogden that gave the federal government the right to control interstate commerce or trade between states. And so again, without Marbury versus Madison, we wouldn't have the decision in McCulloch v. Maryland, which established the supremacy clause where really the federal government is supreme over the states. Is that correct, Mr. Norris?
Definitely, without question. Then we have the War of 1812 that we talked about the last unit, this national crisis, and oftentimes throughout American history, when there's a national crisis, it brings people together. I remember after 9/11, a recent national crisis, many people in America came together, and you saw George Bush had over 90% approval ratings because people were united. And the same is true for back then. So during the War of 1812, the country was unified for the most part against the British, and the victory helped promote national strength and the sense of nationalism, especially Andrew Jackson's victory in the Battle of New Orleans.
So, Mr. Norris, and maybe this is something we can talk about very briefly. Do historians consider the War of 1812 a victory for the United States, or is this debatable?
It's very debatable because neither side gained or lost anything. So it's more of like a draw.
A tie?
A tie, yeah.
We didn't lose.
That's true.
A good thing.
Yes, we didn't lose, which we very well could have. So sometimes a tie is a win.
So we'll call it a win.
It's like hockey, right? You get points for tying sometimes?
That's true.
I don't know
That's right.
hockey.
So we get nationalist points for tying.
There you go. That sounds good. All right, guys, please turn to your packets for video number 1 response. In at least 3 sentences, answer the following question. How did the two-party system and the Marshall Court help unify the United States? Thank you very much for watching. We will see you back here for video number 2.